I find the Brock Purdy thing increasingly fascinating because he's now 8-0 as a starter. They can't lose with him. The offense rolls. No Brandon Ayuk, doesn't matter. Spread it around to a bunch of other people. His numbers are insane, and yet I still don't think we have any idea if he's even good.
Yeah, I know. I saw you put that out and obviously had some backlash. And I tweeted last night that his turnover-worthy play of regression is going to come at some point. Although I think I've been saying that for about 6 weeks, and he started for 8 of them. Not to take away from him, like I do think his willingness to push the ball downfield probably is an upgrade over some 49ers quarterbacks of the past. But I mean, there's hilarious stats everywhere you look. I was inspired last night when Deebo Samuel had the 3rd and 15 screen pass go for 30 yards. Which team, since Brock Purdy took over, which team leads the NFL in yards after the catch per reception when they are in 3rd and 7+? And a very unsurprising answer, it is the 49ers at about 7 yards. And then quickly, I thought, okay, well, is this because of low average depth of target? Is that why the yards after the catch are so high? They're not even bottom 10 in average depth of target on those throws. Kyle Shanahan is a master, and I want to pose a question that our old buddy Austin Gale tweeted out a little bit ago about a conversation between quarterbacks and Kyle Shanahan. He said, the only quarterbacks I'd choose over simply having Kyle Shanahan as my head coach / play caller is Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence. Do you agree? Like, is the list any longer than that?
I mean, the list might be shorter than that, honestly. Like, obviously Patrick Mahomes is on that list. I mean, Josh Allen just showed his capacity to implode randomly against the Jets when all he needed to do was to, keep the ship straight and level. I don't know that Dak Prescott would be on the list. I think the list might be shorter than that. I mean, the numbers last night are absolutely insane. Like, Brock Purdy made some good throws. Let's put that out first and foremost, right? He had 2 big-time throws, which might have been his first 2 of the year. Yeah, they were. So 2 big-time throws, that's something he doesn't always do. So let's give him credit for that. But people are going to lose their minds because he got a passing grade of 59 because by the time the game finishes, we forget the fact that on the first drive, he spent the entire drive almost intent on trying to throw an interception. Deebo and George Kittle had to make pass breakups as intended receivers on that first drive to save him from creating an interception from wayward throws. And then when you look at just sort of how the game was, his average depth of target in the game was 5.3 yards deep. Like, we were hammering Justin Herbert and the Chargers last year for having an average depth of target of 6 point something, and his was 5.3. What was it? 70% of the yards were after the catch from his receivers. It was 2.28 second average time to throw is incredibly fast. Like, it's this sort of perfect storm of Shanahan offense. And then right at the end, Brock Purdy makes a couple of nice throws. It's like, all right, see, Purdy's great. 30 points, 300 yards, everything's good. Brock Purdy's the guy. And it's like, I mean, I agree with you that he does add value to this offense. It's not like he's just a passenger. I think that's what makes the discussion kind of interesting. But the degree to which he's propped up first before he adds the value is staggering.
Yeah, like you said, we can highlight, look, the touchdown throw to Deebo Samuel, nice ball. I thought the throw down the left sideline to George Kittle, layered over a defender, it just missed. I think it was a linebacker that was reaching to try and break it up, was a great throw. And the throw to Ronnie Bell, the touchdown, the first one, he was retreating from pressure. You also should mention he got blitzed on about 85% of dropbacks last night. Wink Martindale was just teeing off on him, and so he obviously had to navigate that as well. But like you mentioned, he had 2, maybe 3 turnover-worthy throws on the first drive of the game. I mean, George Kittle did the seatbelt celebration after a beautiful pass breakup. That was hilarious. May have been the highlight of the game because it kind of got a little out of hand after that. But yeah, I mean, we're not trying to just totally denigrate him and take away from him. The 59 grade, I think, is borderline generous. He really did not, do all that great in that game. I mean, Kyle Shanahan said it himself in his post-game presser. He missed a bunch of things. He could have been better. Kittle kind of did too when he came on set to talk with the TNF post-game crew. So yeah, I do think at the end of the day, does Garoppolo make some of those outside the numbers throws? Does he navigate pressure as well? Maybe not. There is positive there, but it's incredible what Kyle Shanahan is able to do. Like you said, no Brandon Ayuk, who was, I think, our second highest graded receiver in the NFL through 2 weeks, and it just simply did not matter.
Yeah, which was the same. I mean, remember week one, like his right tackle's getting annihilated by TJ Watt, and it didn't matter. Like this is the amazing thing with this offense right now is that you can take absolute body blows to really significant parts of it, and it changes nothing. Like Brandon Ayuk being out, all it meant is that George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey were going to have great days. And I agree. Like this was not a particularly good game by Brock Purdy, like relative to his standards. Forget how good he is in overall terms. This wasn't even a good Brock Purdy game, but the numbers were especially good. So we get this weird dynamic. I got to say, like, You say, you got some blowback from that tweet. That was a classic example of, I'm going to tweet this out. I suspect there will be blowback, but I'm going to bed, so I'm not going to see it. So it was a perfect, like, pump and dump tweet of let's drop it out there and bounce because I'm not reading this. This is going to get ugly. The other stat that was hilarious, the blitzing 85% of the stats, or time stat, was phenomenal. I mean, we know Wink Martindale wants to be the most blitz-heavy defensive team in the NFL anyway. He generally is. He was like third heading into this week, I think, and was like, oh, hell no, that's not happening. We're dialing it way up. And also, I wonder if Brian Daboll getting into it with the officials, losing his mind and being distracted was what enabled. Like, I kind of feel like Wink Martindale would blitz 90% of the time every game if you let him. But most of the time, the head coach probably is like, dude, dial it the hell back. You're going too far. This time, Dayball's over there yelling at officials, and Wink's like, blitz some more. Quick, before he sees, send it again. So I think that helped. The other stat that was hilarious was NGS had a stat on Brock Purdy's touchdown, the 27-yard touchdown. 27 yards, the Pythagorean, distance was like 44 yards because he was on the left hash throwing to the right corner of the end zone. Apparently, 44 yards is the single longest pass of Brock Purdy's NFL career so far, which is wild. 44 yards is the longest throw that he's had in the NFL.
The average is like 260 and 2 touchdowns a game with 0 interceptions. So it is a pretty wild stat. And that throw, I mean, look, it was a perfect back shoulder ball. I think Deebo Samuel's going to win that one-on-one with whichever healthy corner was out there on him at that point in the game. All 3 Giants corners were injured at some point during that contest. But real quick, kind of a twist, go look at the other side of the ball because we could talk about the Niners the entire show. Thought it was an interesting tweet that came out last night from Josina Anderson. Right before the game started, she tweeted out that according to her sources in San Francisco, they were, quote-unquote, preparing for Brian Daboll to be the one calling plays, and then effectively alluded to in the first half against Arizona, it was Mike Kafka, and then Daboll took over in the second half where they, of course, scored on every single possession they had, went 5 for 5. Obviously, they had 150 yards last night, their lowest in a decade. We didn't see anything, but I don't know. Do you have any, kind of thoughts on that, or thoughts on what Daboll, maybe brings to the table differently? Is that going to continue? Did you notice anything different in what they were doing, or maybe just kind of a interesting tweet to monitor going forward?
Well, first of all, he denied it, didn't he? Like he was asked straight up after the game, after the game where he apparently took over play calling. Because I forget who it was. Damn it, I think it was Pat Leonard. Asked him straight up because he noticed him paying a lot more attention to the play card, and said, did you take over play calling? And he was like, nope, didn't happen. So it sounds like it did. He just lied about it.
It's one of those mysteries every single week that we always kind of, with every team, where it's like, oh, well, this guy's looking at a big play sheet. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can hold a laminated piece of paper in front of me on a sideline as well. We all can do that, and we can talk into a headset. I can be telling limericks. It doesn't really change what's actually happening. But, not to take away from Kafka, I think he obviously is a good offensive mind. I mean, potentially a head coach in the future. Just found that interesting. I mean, yeah, they couldn't do anything, but, on that side of the ball again. Now, I mean, Daniel Jones, look, was he perfect? No. First of all, Kirk Herbstreit, love the guy. Him blaming Darren Waller on that first throw, right, where it was maybe 2 feet behind him and maybe 2 feet too high, it was like, come on, that was not Darren Waller's fault. But at the same time, Daniel Jones under a historically high pressure rate through 2 weeks, like you just tweeted out, like you can't even have competent quarterback play when you're under pressure on basically half of your dropbacks in a game. No Andrew Thomas, a couple other injuries throughout the game. They had 4 offensive linemen with a pass block grade below 30. It was a bloodbath.
Yeah, Steve ran the numbers. It was the third worst team pass blocking grade we've given. I forget what his period of time was, but over an extended period of time since 2020. So it's the third worst individual game performance from a pass blocking unit since 2020 that we've seen in a game. It was catastrophic. And like you say, he's been under pressure 47% of the time through 3 games. 40% is bad. 45 is generally anything above that. It's not going to work. The quarterback, the offense, it isn't going to function at 45% of the time. And through 3 games, Daniel Jones has been at 47%. And that doesn't mean that he's played well when he hasn't been under pressure. Like his grade last night, not under pressure, was 55. But there's a knock-on effect, right? When you're under pressure half the time, effectively, your brain doesn't switch off on the one play where you're not under pressure, right? You're essentially conditioned at that point to expect it, and that's when you start, seeing ghosts or anticipating the pressure that never comes, and it has that knock-on effect even on plays where you're actually not under pressure. So, look, I don't think Daniel Jones has played particularly well. I also don't think he's had any real chance to survive. Now, one thing Brian Daboll taking over play calling can do, if that's what's happening, is just with his weight of experience, I think he has a better idea of how to try and mitigate some of those problems, right? Like here's what we need to do when the offensive line is just getting absolutely wrecked. Like here's what the play call sheet now looks like. We're getting rid of this, and this, because it's not viable. Like that's straight out of the window. So I think he gives you the best chance to try and offset the problems, but he doesn't fix the problems, which is the Giants' biggest issue.
And I think the biggest tell for me was they even highlighted it at halftime. They were talking about how last week against Arizona, they come out, I think it was one of the first plays of the entire first half. They throw that bomb to Jalen Hyatt, and it resets the entire game. You can't wait for Jalen Hyatt to run downfield last night. Like that's not, again, like you said, that's not in the playbook. He's an awesome player. Daniel Jones is not going to have the time. And I do agree, like you said, I think we underestimate if a guy's getting hit 80% of the time and getting, pressured half the time, he's going to have an internal clock that's extremely sped up, even if he is clean on some of those dropbacks. Last thing I'll say is just to go to RB value and all of that. Look, this is a game where not having Saquon Barkley as an outlet to just give it to him, let him make guys miss in space and run after the catch. Like Gary Brightwell actually had a couple of those on that touchdown drive they finally had in the third quarter. I think he had one down the left sideline for about 20 yards. But that is ignoring running, ignoring offensive line play, helping run, yada, yada, yada. That's the check down outlet is one of the biggest pieces of value there. And he just didn't have that either. Everything was about as bad as it could have been for Daniel Jones.
I was watching using the Amazon, whatever they call it, the Prime feed, where you get the kind of all 22 view and the overlay graphics and all that kind of stuff. There was a play, I forget when it was, but I feel like it was in a similar time, start of the second half, to that bomb to Jalen Hyatt last week, right? And they had a formation where they had Jalen Hyatt in the slot on the left-hand side, and they had him matched up one-on-one with a safety, the way the 49ers deployed to align it, because I think it was 12 personnel or something like that. It wasn't 11. So they had a heavy-ish personnel package and had managed to manufacture Hyatt in the slot, and it was one-on-one with the safety playing off coverage. And from pre-snap, you're like, uh-oh, here it is. They're doing it again. Like, this is the bomb. This is what they've been waiting for. And he ran the go, and he was open, and Jones never had a chance to get to it. Like, pressure came from the right-hand side. He had to try and, roll left, and at which point the bomb to the left is gone. There's no way he's going to be able to stop, pivot, turn his feet, get it out of the air again. And that was just that's the problems they're dealing with right now. Yes, a bomb to Jalen Hyatt might reset things and change the whole dynamic, but he doesn't have the time to get that out, right? The 49ers pass rushers yesterday. Javon Hargrave, PFF pass rushing grade 92.3. Nick Bosa, pass rushing grade 91.5. Eric Armstead, pass rushing grade 91.3. Javon Kinlaw, notable bust up until this season, pass rushing grade of 81.8. I mean, at least 4 guys just almost wrecking the Giants' offensive line at will. I would say, Daniel Jones has very little chance of getting things done within that system at the moment, and the Giants have very little chance of having success with the current dynamic as it is.
Yeah, I know it's 3 games, but Javon Kinlaw does look like a different player. That'll be fun to monitor through the rest of the season. He really does look like that burst is back. The reason he got taken top 15, you're kind of seeing why on tape. Daniel Bellinger, if I'm him going into a potential franchise tag, I would argue for the offensive line tag, I think. I would say, clearly I'm not a tight end. I am a right tackle with eligibility to catch the ball, but I never actually run routes. And I think he's a pretty good player, too. But matching up one-on-one with Nick Bosa, where you're outside of him, is going to lead to sacks and borderline safeties pretty much every time. But that's the one thing I would say, now with a healthy Wan'Dale Robinson back and Jalen Hyatt, if you have a game like this, throw them 10 screens. Like, maybe that's one adjustment, because they aren't just downfield threats. They also can be shifty with the ball in their hands. But again, I mean, Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, Oren Burks had a great game. Like, there was nothing they could do at any level of the field last night.